Welcome to another episode of Two Old Geeks Talking. Now on the World Wide Web.
Hey, welcome back to Two Old Geeks Talking. I'm Rob.
Howdy. I'm Trace.
And today we're talking about Jonah Hex.
I thought we was talking about Yellowstone.
No.
Oh, man. But anyway, so tell me about Jonah Hex. Cause
Well, first, let me ask you, what was your first introduction to Jonah Hex?
probably you telling me you were into Jonah Hex. I don't read DC comics very often. Not saying nothing against DC, but you was always the DC guy. I was the Marvel guy. And but I was familiar with Jonah Hex really just through you. So that when I would go to, a comic book store, I would pick up a Jonah Hex if I'd see it. I'd thumb through it. And even the other day, I found some in a back issue bin.
Okay.
I sent you a picture, and it's like, hey, you got these? Because they're $1 a piece. And so tell me about Jonah Hex. And I'll have a lot of stupid questions. So I'm the
There's
newbie.
no such thing as stupid questions, just stupid answers.
That's what my mom
I probably got a handful of them.
So go ahead.
So anyway, I was first introduced to Jonah Hex, believe it or not, by watching animation. Like he was in Batman, The Adventures of Batman. He was in Justice League, and it intrigued me. So this was probably mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Or it's 2023 now, so that's about 2016, somewhere around there. And so I started looking him up. I like Western stuff. I wear a Western hat most all the time, and so I started looking him up. And what I enjoyed most about it, it was like one and done. It wasn't
standalone stories.
Yeah, it was just
like
there wasn't no major arcs. You didn't need to know a whole lot. You just got a good story. And
that way you can jump in on a character and jump right back out.
Right.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't getting hooked or getting, invested. I could just visit him when I wanted to. But then I got hooked. So, shit happened. Anyway.
So his first appearance was in All-Star Westerns 10?
All-Star Westerns issue 10, and that was that was his first full-length appearance in 1972 in that comic book. But the year before, 1971, they had an insert that was several pages long, kind of being like a teaser trailer kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's not his first full-length appearance, but that was where he was first shown, was in a comic book, somebody else's comic book, just to be like, hey, here's a little taste. Yeah,
it's kind of like what Marvel Premiere would do. It would sample other characters, and if they were popular, then they would get their own series.
Right.
So let me ask you. So he's a bounty hunter,
right?
So does he bounty hunt? And the reason I say that, and that may sound like a stupid question, is because like Boba Fett's a bounty hunter, but how often did you see Boba Fett bounty hunt? Even in the Disney series he did. And another one would be Mandalorian. So he's supposed to be a bounty hunter. He was like in the first episode. And then he hasn't done any bounty hunting, since then. So it seems like the world is full of bounty hunters that don't hunt bounties. So.
Okay, so Jonah Hex, the way I describe everybody.
Go on. I'm just trying to get my Western on. Go ahead.
Okay. So the best way I describe Jonah Hex is he is one of those anti-heroes. He's not really
like Punisher.
Yeah. He's not somebody who purposely goes out of his way to do good, but that's kind of his moral compass. But he has no problem doing what needs to be done to get to the good. So, and as far as bounty hunting, I would describe him. At a point in his career, he's more of a gun for hire.
Yeah.
I mean, because in some comic books, there was an organization of women who was trying to fight for their rights, and they hired him as a bodyguard.
Okay.
He didn't agree with what they were doing. He didn't give a shit. He was there to make money.
So he's a bounty hunter that on occasion bounty hunts.
Right.
Okay.
And so then
I would just like to have a bounty hunter that bounty hunts. Just an entire character that he's a bounty hunter, and that's all he does is hunt bounties.
Yeah, but if you have if you don't have some kind of nuance or something different every now and again, you're even going to get burned out on that.
I guess.
I
guess
mean,
you're right.
Right. So, anywho, you already. So the original writer was Jonathan Albano, and the artist, which I cannot. I'm a butcher his last name. You all can try to phonetically write this in the comment, but his name was Tony Dzuniga.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Anyway, so they. You didn't go. Well, that took a while to get down there.
Yeah, it's real far down there.
So they had fairly good popularity, and there was something about the character I wanted to say about this time era.
Now he's a Confederate soldier.
Okay, he kind of ended up getting into being a Confederate soldier by accident, kind of.
Yeah. Whoops! I'm accidentally fighting for the South.
Yeah, right. We'll get into that. So anyway, in 1985, during Crisis of Infinite Earth, they kind of started an 8-issue story called Hex, and it was where they sent him in. Let's go ahead and talk about his origin before we jump into that.
Go for it.
They sent him into the future. It sucked.
Yeah, it was just called Hex, and it was supposed to be like post-apocalyptic
right,
stuff.
Exactly, it was post-apocalyptic.
But why would you do that? Why would you do that? I guess they screw with characters. You know, there for a while, Punisher was a demon hunter. And
DC has a real bad habit with like the New 52, changing people's origins. This whole freaking Crisis on Earth. There's every time you turn around, they're changing the whole freaking landscape of their worlds.
Yeah, so does the new version not fought in the Confederate War?
The new version, well, that's back in the 80s. So
yeah.
The new version, we'll get into that.
Okay.
So yeah, he had fought in the war, but he had been sent into the future. And the only redeeming thing that this whole book had was the very last issue, because he was always trying to get back home. He was trying to figure out the way to get back in time.
Yeah.
And in the last issue, he'd come across this Wild West antique thing where they had stuffed a bunch of things, and he actually come across his own corpse that they had stuffed and displayed as, ooh, Jonah Hex, bounty hunter, blah, blah, blah. And he was happy to see his dead body because he at least knew that he was going to make it back.
Yeah, make it back so they could die and get stuff.
And that's the great thing about Jonah Hex is he's the only really comic book character that you know when he's going to die.
Yeah.
Even if they do new stories, this is a fixed time. Like like you mentioned Doctor Who, this is a fixed moment in time.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change that. And
I mentioned Doctor Who off camera.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
see, we talked for hours before we
But
recorded.
how does Face get all jacked up?
Okay. So, like most comic book characters, his origin story is kind of not vague, but like different writers come up with different versions.
Yeah.
So originally, his father was not a good guy. His dad was a drunk, whooped his wife, whooped his son, and she eventually died. And he started traveling with his son. And he had spent all his money, and in order to obtain more money, he literally sold his son. His father was named Woodson Hex. And so he sold his son into slavery.
That's not nice.
Yeah, for money.
You know what I say about that?
Tui. So, anywho, he ended up in a tribe of Indians. And while there, he ended up saving the chief's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the chief adopted him as a son.
Yeah.
And so there was supposed to be like a trial of manhood.
So he carried, because I noticed he carries a hatchet.
Right.
Is that from where he lived with?
Right. He trained to hunt, trained to live off the land, trained to be a tracker. A lot of his skills, and that's another thing. I like a hero that doesn't have superhuman human powers.
Yeah, you always did.
He just has abilities that he trained and honed throughout the years. So there was like a trial of manhood that he was supposed to do with his half brother, the chief's actual son. Well, the son never took to Jonah, and he ended up kind of messing with his hatchet. They were supposed to battle with hatchets, and so he messed with his hatchet so that it would break.
Yeah.
And so Jonah ended up pulling out a knife and using it on him, which disgraced him. You know, it's all about respect and honor and stuff like that. So they ended up marking him. They heated up a hatchet and ended up sticking that hatchet to the side of his face, which melted his face, and that's why his face is all messed up. Blinded him in one eye.
Yeah.
But although he's blind in one eye, he's still considered one of the best marksmen at that time in that era.
Yeah, what always got me about his face scar, and it irritated the crap out of me, was he had one piece of meat that like ran from his lip down to his other lip. Now, and you could probably see it and say this picture here, that would be a good picture. I would take my knife and I would just cut that. You know, because that just irritates me. You know, food's got to get hung in it, and it ain't going to make you uglier if it ain't there. So, yeah, every time I see a comic, and I just be like, man, just take your knife and cut that piece of meat. It ain't doing nothing.
It ain't going to hurt you more than
unless you just sit around the campfire and play it like banjo. Bing, 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 bing. Well, anyway.
So, he was exiled, and while being in exile, he ended up becoming a tracker and helping out this military group, which ended up becoming the not the Confederates, but the is it the Confederates? Who was the great guys?
Yeah, Confederates. Yeah.
So he really didn't consider himself as a part of it, but they did, and he ended up going into. He ended up fighting up against them one time, and they counted him as a traitor. And so they put him in a prison, and they had actually, the bad Confederate guys had actually kind of constructed an underground tunnel for him to purposely find, so that when he let all those prisoners out, they was waiting on the other end and gunned them down.
He's got a lot of bad luck.
Yeah, and they actually considered it the massacre of that.
Captured by Indians, deformed, joins Confederacy. They set him up. Yeah,
right. Yeah. I mean, his whole life is just one big.
Yeah. So does he got a bad attitude from all that?
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah.
I mean, he don't take no shit off nobody, but that's all he's caught his whole damn life was just one shitty opportunity after another.
So they constantly are redoing comics. So you had your original Jonah Hex, then you had the post-apocalyptic Jonah Hex. And so
next, Vertigo got a hold of him.
Yeah. Oh, I love Vertigo.
Vertigo did a good job.
And that's DC. And
so in 1993 to 1995, Joe R. Lanzin had control of him. And it wasn't bad. The bad thing about it was they had him fighting things like zombies and Cthulhu.
Yeah, I mean, I like Westerns. And I like the weird Western where you throw stuff in there, and that's what I always thought Jonah Hex was. But he didn't start out that way.
No, he wasn't all this metaphysical ghosts crap.
I take it that you didn't really care for that part.
No. I liked the strictly Western.
Yeah.
I liked him because he was kind of like a Western version of Batman.
Yeah,
he was a detective. There was a lot of times, when you're hunting somebody down, you've got to be more of a detective than you are just a killer. So that's what I liked, finding out, figuring out the ins and outs of a situation. So in 2005, Justin Gray got a hold of the comic book. This is where I started looking at the comic books, and this is the best time if you want to start collecting. This is where you want to start picking up.
Oh, yeah.
I lucked out.
Yeah.
Because for years and years and years and years and years, comic book companies, Marvel, DC, everybody else, had to follow by the comic book code.
Yeah.
For some reason in 2006, nobody gave them the release. Nobody said it's okay not to follow it. Marvel and DC just said,
Yeah, we're done
Screw
with
it,
it.
we're done.
Yeah, yeah. It was just it was a form of censorship.
So this was a time to where you could see Jonah Hex
Be Jonah Hex.
be Jonah Hex.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is one of my favorite issues. And this is a storyline I would suggest. It's called A Face Full of Violence. And this is one hell of a story because this rich family hires him not to be a bounty hunter, but to hunt down this.
Is that a beginning of a series, or is that just a standalone?
No, it's a big. Well, no, each one of these stories are kind of a standalone. Like this has a beginning and an end.
Yeah, but it says number 1. There is a number 2.
Right. Well, this is because this is the new beginning of a new Jonah Hex.
Okay, I got you.
This is the rough and tumble, and in this artwork, they draw him so much to look like Clint Eastwood. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
When you read it, you can't.
Is that who you would get to be?
Sometimes,
Clint
but
Eastwood?
Clint Eastwood don't really have a good Southern drawl.
Oh man, that looks just like Clint Eastwood.
Right? I told you. Yeah. When they draw him to look like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, yeah.
But with a goober on his face. So in this comic book, they hire him to hunt down their son that's come up missing. Well, his son had been put into this like dog fight. Literally, the boy's fighting dogs. He's got a big metal mask, this pitchfork on his hand. He's literally fighting dogs. Jonah Hex, when he finds this out, takes the guy that's running this dogfight thing and feeds him to his own dogs. The boy ends up having rabies. So Jonah Hex mercy kills this boy that he's supposed to be saving so he can take him back to his family. And that's just the very first.
Well, tarnation.
Yeah.
Patooey.
So I mean, it don't get any rougher and tumbler, especially for that day and age where you had the comic book code where you couldn't show blood or anything. I mean, this guy literally threw a bucket of blood on a guy and kicked him into a thing of dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just outrageous, and so everybody was like, "Oh, this is awesome." It was horrific, but it was awesome.
Now, is that comic worth a bunch?
I don't know.
The fact it's not bagged and boarded
Irritates the ever love shit out of you.
hurts me deep down inside where I'm soft, like a woman.
So anyway, that ran for quite a few panels, and another great thing is they went back to 1972 and grabbed Tony to actually do some of the artwork, the original artist.
Yeah.
To do some of the artwork.
Oh, that's cool.
For the covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty badass. I mean, it's kind of like, hey man, this is your baby.
Yeah, it's legacy, man.
Yeah,
It's
right. And I thought that was pretty cool. So that lasted for a certain length of time, and in 2011, we got the new 52.
Now you were on board when New 52 come along.
No.
I mean, you started getting a bunch of the number ones, right?
I ain't gonna lie. Okay, but I was also one of those geeks that thought if I got every number one when I'm 52 years old,
You'll be able to retire.
I'm going to be able to retire.
Right.
Nah. As I was picking them up, it was just like every time I picked it up and opened the page, it was more of a smack in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, because they took some of my favorite characters and just.
They did something you didn't like, Deathstroke either.
They made Deathstroke young again. They gave him one of his eyes back.
Yeah.
Green Arrow, they made him a kid again. They took every one of their characters back to ground zero.
Yeah.
And it's just I didn't care for that. So this new 52 was in, and I think that might be part of the new 52 because they had all these white covers.
Yeah, Hex 63.
Yeah. So
that's a pretty good run though. 63 comics. Was they coming out once a month? There for a while.
Yeah.
Some of the companies tried to do the whole bi-monthly thing, have a comic come out twice a month. So, but in the old days they would just be once a month. But 63, that's a pretty good run.
Right. The only good thing about the new 52, in my opinion, was the Jonah Hex story.
Oh.
Not because they did not jack around with him.
Yeah.
They had a storyline to where he ended up going into old Gotham. And he...
old Western version.
An old Western where Gotham was just getting started. And there was a butcher killer. There was somebody killing a lot of the people. I think it might have been a lot of the whores in town.
Yeah.
And
Poor whores.
Poor whores. So there was this guy who was helping start the town.
Yeah.
With Mayor Cobblepot, Cobblepot being the Penguins family. His name was Arkham.
Yeah, so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
I was just fixing to say, mixing Jonah Hex and Batman. I bet you were just like, oh man, check it out.
They've done that where they've had Jonah Hex or Batman get shot into the past. Run across Jonah Hex. Yeah. But anyway, so he worked with this Arkham fella to try to find the killers and stuff. So it was kind of cool to see, it was almost like an origin story of Arkham and the people that's still there in the future is still present in the past. They're almost like the founding fathers. And the Cobblepots were more important than the Waynes back then.
Cool.
Then DC decided to say, years passed, and they're like, let's just screw everything up again.
Yeah, why not?
We're going to call it Rebirth. We're going to just rebirth everything.
Well, they do that because they can go back to number one. And they've got a whole generation of people that run out and buy those number one comics. I mean, there's no doubt every time a character restarts that sales of that number one's higher than, say, 63.
Yeah.
And so that's all the comic book company cares about. And they restart them every year or every 2 years now. And so that's why when you go to buy a comic book on a character, you got volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. And I mean, you got to have a calculus degree before you can like, if you try to get everything in chronological order now, it's near impossible. It makes it hard.
Now because
it makes it hard for the long-time comic book collector. The casual collector, it's great.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, somebody who wants to go back and add to their collection or grow their collection.
Yeah.
Too many people's had their fingers in it. And I understand why, But that's why I always admired the writers of Doctor Who. They've got a library of guys that just keep track of everything. And you can't mess with it. You can't mess with that. Yeah. And that's the way comic book writers should be.
Yeah.
Should be, in my opinion.
Right.
But anyway, so this Jonah Hex was part robotic and part alien.
Oh, cool.
So that's when they screwed with Jonah Hex, and that's when I stopped collecting Jonah Hex.
I bet you're so mad.
Yeah.
Did you pick up any of them, or
No.
did you just get a whiff of it and be like,
no,
let's step over that?
That was back in the day when you could still thumb through a comic book, and you're like, what the? So when I had mentioned that Jonah Hex has a beginning and an end. So Jonah Hex actually dies in, let's see, what year was it? 1904. He made it to the 19th century before he died.
Yeah.
The way he died, he was still a bounty hunter.
Oh.
He was an old man, but he was still a bounty hunter.
That'd be a good comic, Old Man Jonah Hex.
Yeah, or just call it Old Man Hex.
Yeah, that'd be good.
He lived to be 66 years old.
Yeah.
He was hired as a bounty hunter.
I hope I make it that long.
Yeah, right. And back then, during that time, that's a
old.
long time.
Yeah.
That's old. So he was hired to hunt down this gang, and he went in and destroyed the gang, but the leader got away. So Jonah Hex at this time had found happiness for the first time in his life and had married a Native American woman named Tallbird.
Mm-hmm.
And
was she short?
No.
Because that would have been ironic.
She wasn't that tall either. So Jonah, what do you do in the Westerns and you're going to go take a break? You go to the saloon.
Yeah.
He was at the saloon. He was playing cards. And he was sitting there fumbling with his glasses trying to get them on so he could see. And that leader of that gang come up behind him and shot him in the back with a shotgun. That's his death. He didn't die in a shootout. He didn't die any heroic way. He died by a coward shooting him in the back. Oh. Now the guy ended up getting
It happens.
Killed. Yeah, that's life. And you never get what you expect.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what's cool is not in this particular comic. They say Jonah relives his life as he's fading into darkness.
Yeah.
But down the road. And he had a son. He also had a son, and he's remembering his son's life. And
Jonah Hex Jr.
His name was actually Jason Hex.
Jason Hex.
And Jason Hex had a son, and his name was Woodson Hex. Woodson Hex the second. So there could actually be a Jonah Hex, could be a Hex comic book now with some of his descendants.
Nah, just go back.
I know.
Yeah, go back. Yeah, it's got to be the same guy.
It wouldn't be the same. But anyway, he ended up, and there was another comic book series to where they kind of you know how they show you your origin 100 times? With this one, they redone his death. He still died the same, but in this one, they actually showed what he was seeing. They didn't just say he's reliving his life.
Like a flashback.
They actually show you the flashlight of
and that was probably like the narrative of the story.
Right, and it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
talk about the movie.
You could tell by my expression.
Yeah, I tell. You got constipated all of a sudden. Well, I tell you what.
Did you watch it? Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it. Okay. I've seen it. Now, I watched it when there's a really horrible movie on. Typically what I do is get my this laptop, and I'll sit there and I'll kind of have the movie on the big screen TV, and I'll watch it and kind of look down at the internet and watch it. So I am watching it and I am listening to it, but you really can't focus on that Jonah Hex movie. It was 2010. Is that when it come out?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And
it was only like.
It seemed like I would always look up when Megan Fox was on there, and then
really?
I would always look down again. Yeah, it's weird.
It's like instinct.
Yeah. But I mean, you got a great character.
Yeah.
You got a good actor, Josh Brolin. Yeah. A good actor, and you got a big budget. So
I mean, not just him, but there was quite a few good actors.
Oh yeah. What was it?
John Malkovich was the main villain. You had Megan Fox.
Yeah. So I mean, what went wrong, man? I mean, you got the money, you got the people, we got the camera, we got the costumes, and it was retarded.
I think Hollywood's what went wrong.
Yeah.
I think they tried to not make it the Western it is.
Yeah.
And tried to make it into something more dynamic.
Now he could talk to dead people in the movie. Yeah, did he do that in the comic?
No, he had no supernatural powers. He had no abilities, anything like that. Oh, one comic book I forgot to mention, after his death, he did make another appearance in the Blackest Night series. All the characters in DC comic books was coming back as freaking zombies and stuff.
Oh, and he was zombie Jonah Hex.
Yeah, he was zombie Jonah Hex.
Well, that would still be better than Josh Brolin.
He got shot with a freaking rocket launcher.
Has there any? I don't think there's anybody that's played more superheroes. Now, maybe I'm wrong than Josh Brolin, because you got Jonah Hex,
right? Which a lot of people don't know. People don't remember that.
You got Cable,
right?
And you got Thanos,
right?
And so. The guy that played Captain America, he was Human Torch in Fantastic Four, and he was Captain America.
Right.
And so then you've got, what's the dude who plays Deadpool?
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds. So he was Green Lantern, and he was Deadpool.
Right.
But I don't think nobody's done 3 different characters before.
Yeah,
congratulations, Josh.
Yeah, you should do it. It's not that Josh did a bad role. It just was a bad story.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make that writing good. I don't care how you growl it or what expression you have. Yeah, bad writing's bad writing.
Yeah,
and he got paid, and so that's the main thing. But
yep.
But was you excited about the movie coming out?
Yeah. Okay, so yes and no. I never try to get too excited. I don't never try to expect something. I go in kind of expecting the worst, and if it's better than what I expect, I'm mildly surprised.
Yeah.
So I did the same thing with this, and I got exactly what I expected.
Did you go to the theater and see it?
Yeah. That was a big pile of crap.
Yeah. Oh man.
And I recently paid money again to rewatch it because I thought, that was such a long time ago. Maybe.
That's a trap that geeks fall into.
It's a trap.
you watch something and so. I've done this with like tasting some of these new near beers or these new ales that come out. You taste something that's so bad, you're like, was it really that bad? You got to taste it again. You're like, yeah, it really was that bad. There's been times where I would watch when I was younger and a little less wise. I'd watch something, and a few years later, I'm like, was that really that bad? But now I'm older. It's like there's some things I never go back and rewatch. Any Highlander sequel, I never watched that. Any Crow sequel, never watch any of those. Jonah Hex, I'll never watch that. The second Conan movie with Arnold, never watch that again. So there's just some things I'm like, yeah, I don't even want to go back and revisit that. Yeah. But I appreciate you taking the hit for the team and watching it again.
Well, I'm such a fan of Jonah Hex. But one thing that they have done recently is in the television show Legends of Tomorrow. I don't even know if they still do that. There was a Jonah Hex in that.
Yeah, I watched those clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
And in preparation for this, and plus I watched a few clips where he was on some cartoon series.
Yeah, and I think they did okay with it. I mean, he didn't have the big jacked up eye, but he still did pretty good with it.
But you could take you wouldn't need a big budget. Westerns are typically pretty cheap.
Right.
You could take just a good Western movie and turn it into the way the original Jonah Hex was, or the way the Jonah Hex was here.
Right.
Make it good. Now, having that real horrible movie in the background with Josh Brolin, they'll probably never ever. That's a bad thing. You love a character,
right?
And they come out with either a series or a movie, and it is horrible. Well, you can pretty much write that character off.
Yeah,
Hollywood's not going to spend money on it again, And so, unfortunately, we'll probably never get another Jonah Hex.
So I have some. I'm sorry, I keep kicking
you're good.
So I've got some suggested reading. Of course, like I said, the Face Full of Violence. That's good. That was where they released the comic code, or they decided to just drop it. Bury Me in Hell. That is kind of like where he had those flashbacks.
Yeah.
It shows his death and it shows those flashbacks. So that's kind of cool. And then All Star Western #1 of the New 52. I know that sounds weird that I'm suggesting the New 52, but that's because that's where they introduced Gotham.
Okay, gotcha. And you have a Jonah Hex action figure.
I do. I have a Jonah Hex action figure.
It's not from the movie.
No, it's a showcase action figure, and the reason I don't have it here is because everything I got is pretty much still boxed up.
Oh man,
I haven't got to that geek room yet.
Yeah, I would like to see it. Eventually, he's going to have his geek room set up, and we'll actually film there. So that'd be awesome. So, are you done?
I think we're done.
All right then. See you next month.
All right. Bye-bye.